and counselors to kind of have speaking more professional.
Thank you very much, Annette Dernick. And we're live today from in many places. I'm in San Diego, California, and welcome to Global TV Talk Show, a unit of globalbusinessnews.net. Well, let's quickly introduce ourselves. And so first off, Jack Jampel. Hello, Jack. Unmute, please, and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Ed. My name is, it says, Jack Jampel. I currently run the relocation mobility program for Stryker, a medical technology company, and had previous experience, most of my career with Wyeth Pharmaceuticals in many HR senior leadership positions. So hopefully I can add some value today from various ends of the spectrum. I am located near Philadelphia, which is not as exciting as a lot of the other places that I've seen everyone from. But thanks for having me, Ed.
You bet. Thank you very much, Jack. And your views about the changing world of mobility, we're going to add to the mix here today, and we'll get right back to you. So this is the Mastermind series, a multi-edition series of talk shows that so far are virtual, remote, on purpose. My live conference business crashed and burned almost exactly 3 years ago due to the pandemic. We had a 30-year profitable experience producing live meetings in North America, South America, and Europe. And someday we're going to do it again. In fact, starting May 9 in London will be what I'm calling a VIP meeting, virtual plus in person. And then if we can pull it all together, then we'll do additional meetings. So the theme of all this is about global business talent, strategies, and tactics, creating a culture for well-being. That's the hot word these days, right? Well-being. We're going to define what that means to each of us. My title here that I'm using, I'm reading this so I don't screw it up. Creating a culture for well-being in the workplaces, at home, and in the community. And we all need that, wherever we are from. Hello, Mirella, welcome.
And, hello, everybody. Great to see you.
And welcome, Yvonne Kwa? I'll get that right eventually, Yvonne. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hi there. Yeah. Hello. So welcome, Yvonne. And Yvonne, do you have a time constraint that I need to know about?
No, I'm all right till 12.
Oh, okay. Good. And it's now a little after 11 in Washington. So if Yvonne is a senior manager within the World Bank Group Family Network based in Washington. She's also, and she's been doing that many years, but she's also a recent author, publishing Whose Career Is It? Yours, Mine, or Ours? Yvonne, equity. I'm going to read this. Couple equity refers to the shared assets, values, and investments that partners in a relationship have built over time. This encompasses financial and non-financial assets. So let's talk about that, Yvonne. This is a crisis that's manageable? Dual career families?
Is it manageable? Yes, of course it is. Otherwise, I don't think I could write my book. Yes, of course it is manageable, but I don't think it's easy. And actually, more and more, when you think about it, a lot of the root cause is the inequity between couples, because I'm not talking about financial. I'm not that interested in the financial. It's not my expertise. My expertise is more in the non-financial aspects. Is that one person's career leads, inevitably the other person's is the accompanying one, the following one, or whatever it is. And that leaves inequity. And when the gap's too big, then the person who's I don't like to use the left behind, but the following one has less choices. And this affects women, which is my favorite topic, incidentally, more than men. Because of gender expectations, if you look at the expatriate statistics, you still find the main assignee is still male rather than female. And then, of course, with moving across the world, and we see it all the time, the women's careers are impacted. And therefore, in the end, I think it will affect gender equality because there's no equity. So without equity, there's no equality. So it's one of those things. And then to go back to your topic, Edwin, of well-being, when we continually feel we're in an unfair situation, I think it affects our well-being, because well-being is that feeling of being confident or being satisfied or feeling seen and heard. And what was very interesting this week was I discovered that the two people that affect your well-being the most are your partner and your direct boss.
Yeah, boy.
Those are the two key players if we're talking about well-being. Who will affect my well-being? My partner and my boss.
So let me ask you a question about the people that you interact with and have been for many years. Within the World Bank group, these are pretty senior people, and they're all making a bunch of money. They're very well endowed, and they're very, let's just say, acquisitive in their knowledge and in things that they like to do. So, Yvonne, do you have a special attitude, a special approach that you recommend the corporate people on this program and the expert providers on this program should learn about when dealing with dual career situations?
I would always, of course, ask, how does your partner feel about this? You know, have you discussed this? But, you know, it's hard wearing a corporate hat. Because contractually, you're bound to the principal who's going. You're not there to discuss the principal's spouse and everything. So, but the spouse is a very key unseen player in this whole thing. And so I think just to open up the discussion, because I think some people don't actually think to do it. It depends. It's a generational difference. I think I see with the older, should I say, the boomers and X, the assumption is my spouse will follow. I think with the younger ones, millennials, the Ys, increasingly, they see that they cannot expect, and I think their partners have said that too, but then they still don't know how to navigate this. So there is an understanding of, no, this is not going to work. She's as well educated as I am, and you know, she's not going to keep she's not going to accept this forever. But there is also a sense of, then what do we do now? Because we don't really have tools for the journey.
That's very interesting. I was introduced to Yvonne about 1.5 years, 2 years ago by Andy Elliman, and I welcome you, Andy.
Hi, Ed. Thanks for having me on the show again. It's always nice to see everyone.
Yeah, thank you. So look, everybody is welcome, as many I already have, I see in the chat, this chat box down the bottom. Use that to introduce yourself, send a message to everybody or just one person, and put down your email, put down your website, your LinkedIn. You don't have to do your date of birth. I don't care about that. But but the idea is to network, and that's the ROI of being on the show. So everyone's going to have a chance to talk here, and I'm going to stop talking. Andy Elliman, thank you very much for being on the show. I have already briefly introduced you earlier as climbing Mount Everest more than once, and also attempting to swim and doing a large part of it, the English Channel. And part of that adventurous attitude is that you didn't know how to swim before you jumped in that water off of Dover. That's like crazy making, isn't it? But you're a pretty sane guy, and you really have the plan figured out. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think it goes back to what Yvonne just said about well-being, and and having, where do you get your well-being from? For me, obviously, I work in an industry like all of us, like in global mobility, where it's stressful at times. You're dealing with lots of things that can go wrong, right? But also you're dealing with that all day. So when I look at my challenges, I have my family life, obviously, but then I have my challenges that I set myself, and I always set something that is I've either been told it's impossible, or I've been told that it's not something you'll be able to do. So Everest was something that everyone said, you've got no chance, you're not fit enough, you haven't got the money, $50,000 to do it, you haven't got this, and I proved everyone wrong by getting sponsorship, by getting fit to do the challenge as such. And then when I came back from my Everest exploits, including the world's highest dinner party, the Guinness World Record for that, I get back and I decide that I need a new challenge. And my wife says to me, do something at sea level because you've nearly died at high altitude. So I literally said, I'm going to swim the English Channel, to her shock, to say, well, you can't even swim. And then I took that in a technicality and thought, well, what is it stopping me from swimming? One was my fear of water, getting in out of my depth, fear of drowning, etc. And the other part of that is like learning to swim. So I just broke it down and thought, right, okay, so I've got to overcome my fear. I've got to learn to swim, got to get fit, and then I'm going to attempt to swim the channel. And that's all I focused on. And what I realized, because I do talks on fear, the fear that I thought it was not that at all. Because the moment I said I was swimming to France, I cut out all the fear because my focus was on swimming across to France. So all of the other fear sort of drifted away. I sort of locked it away somewhere in part of your brain. And I find it fascinating now to see where these challenges can take me. So I'm obviously getting ready for another challenge that's going to be next year. That's completely different again. So it's just, I've found that's my release and my well-being, but also I try to make a difference when I do it to help others to try and understand where they are in their own lives, because we only have a short life, and I think we have to make the most of it with what we do. If that makes sense.
And that's why Andy Elliman has been recently named the Communicator of the Year, along with Yvonne Qua, because of what she has been doing. But more about all that later. Philip Berry, there's a quote here that I found on your site: attract what you expect, reflect what you desire, become what you respect, and mirror what you admire. Philip Berry is also the author of a best-selling book called Being Better Than You Believe, 8 Steps to Ultimate Success. So Philip and I have known each other a long time. He's been on several of our talk shows. And the last one we did was maybe a month ago. It was the theme of be intentional. It was on Dr. King Day, wasn't it? Yeah. So being intentional. Here's Philip Berry.
Hi, everybody. Good to see a lot of people who I've seen on this mastermind session before. And and I tell you, Andy, I always enjoy continuing to hear your story about the obstacles that you had in front of you, and then how you dealt with them from the standpoint of fear. I mean, fear is a very important psychological facet that I feel holds people back a lot from moving from where they are to where they want to be. And and as I've been working on things during this year, I would put them into a set of 4 different features, strategies that individuals need to be able to think about. That is, what are you going to create? What are you going to revive? What is going to support you? And what is going to sustain you? And I've been working with individuals who are in organizations on an individual basis, lawyers, engineers, doctors, people in all of these different areas. And you would think that they start the year off having it all together, but they don't. And when I start my strategy session with them, when I talk about not only for them as an individual, but also for their organizations, their teams, their family, their company, what are they going to do differently as they go throughout the year? I mean, are they going to just continue to just rehash old strategies that they had before? Or are they going to be able to open up new doors for themselves? And for me, it's all about opening up new doors, doing, at this point, and I would say everybody on this mastermind session, most of you probably are younger than me, but let's say that we're all between 50 and 75. I'll go up to the higher level there. And so we're at a point where a number of people are not with us who have been with us over the last few years, and especially the last 3 years have had a dramatic impact on a number of people. And so people can go into this year of 2023 with fear and concern. Kierkegaard would call it fear and trembling, because we aren't sure how we're going to approach things in the future. And let me just wind this up with just two other very, very specific things, because I have said, when I look at the new markets, new customers, new horizons that I want to create, then how am I going to sustain myself? Am I going to just do the same, do it with the same application of behaviors and competencies that I had as before? Or am I going to have something new that I create in order to move me exponentially to a new level of performance and a new level of awareness? And I want to do that by being intentional about it, as opposed to just going through the year, doing what I've done before and not thinking about it. And that's where I come out. And the fear factor, some people say, well, well, Andy, I'm using you because it's kind of nice to hear that as a symbol of a person who couldn't swim, and said, like, I'm going to learn to swim. You break it down into different pieces. That's how you deal with fear, by saying, what is it that I'm afraid of? And then what you want to do is to say to yourself, what can I do to support myself? And what type of, and that's where I get into winding up this piece that I want to say, that's where you get into what I call your personal support system, your personal board of directors. And, that's why this group has been like a personal board of directors, in terms of me being able to hear others speak about what they're doing, and then talk about what other things they can do very differently. That's why when the word, I have not retired, I have rewired myself.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Into a whole new way of thinking about how I apply what I am able to do, and I chart out new horizons in order to do it. So I'll stop there.
Let's go to Eva Cleves. You have talked to our audiences a few times, as I've mentioned, about how some companies are focusing on only top talents and not on the general population. So would you like to explain that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it also goes back a bit to what, for instance, Yvonne, you said that, you need to get close with your manager or boss in the office, and then, of course, with your partner at home. But what I can see with those companies that I'm supporting is that, unfortunately, a big portion of them are focusing only on a very small amount of people that they call their top talents. And for most companies, that means that they are focusing about, 10-15% of their full employee population are these top talents that somehow are meant to be the secure of the company's survival. But that also means that the remaining part, 85%, are probably not talent. So unfortunately, they haven't done a very good recruitment, according to me. It's only 10 or 15% that they would manage with.
Thank you. I want to bring back Philip. What do you think about this top talent idea, Philip? Now, Philip has managed talent in over 60 countries for Colgate-Palmolive Corporation in a prior life. Philip?
Well, I think that we need to focus not only on the top, but also on individuals who will move to the top. What I have seen in organizations is that they don't have the bench strength to move people up to the organization so that they can eventually be at the top. And which means that we need to take into account the fact that we have 4 generations in the workplace. And so we need to understand Gen Z. I mean, it used to be just X, Y, and baby boomers. And we need to be able to focus on all different levels in the organization that can move the organization forward. So that way, everyone can be a leader in a different manner, not just the top people. In fact, I would say that the top people need to catch a hold of the thoughts and the ideas there, be able to handle that, get away, let people come through with new ideas on markets they want to go to, new product ideas, new ways to interact with the customer. That's why we now see, for example, don't know how many of you have been trying the chat box type of thing where, using AI, that's a phenomenal feature that we need to all understand. Many people who are at the top have not been able to take on the new behaviors that are necessary that have to do with incorporating technology and also culture, incorporating an understanding of different cultural forms, which is extremely important if you're going to operate on an international basis. If you come from last thing I'll say, if you're from the United States, don't just focus on, oh, I'm going to go over to, I don't know, you name it, Sweden, Chile, Costa Rica, and I'm going to just recreate a US way of approaching things. And that's the narrow mindset that many executives have who are at the top. We need to have people who have a global way of thinking.
Thank you, Philip. I want to quickly move into mobile talent and global talent. And Mirella Marin from Toronto, Zynga is your current home base, right?
That's correct. Hi, Ed. I actually wanted to just quickly comment on something Philip said, because I think in terms of recognizing those high potentials and investing in those potentials, I think companies are starting to think about it. The challenge that we're facing is that those individuals, like the Generation Zs, don't have the patience that some of us of our generations have in seeing our careers develop. And what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from other corporate colleagues is that they're expecting a promotion within 12 months of being in an organization. So they're not actually investing the time to learn the business, to explore. They come with fantastic ideas, but they have this expectation that within 3 to 18 months, they're already an associate vice president. And so I think what we're finding is that challenge about investing in those high potentials and not focusing all of our attention on the top 10% or 15% of our employee population. We do want to keep that pipeline coming, but we're finding that people want to skip jobs. So they're looking for a promotion before they've actually even learned the job. They're looking for their next opportunity before they've actually even accomplished anything or left a legacy behind at their last employer. So I think from my perspective, we're seeing global mobility as a tool to start to integrate the talent and mobility strategies together to use international assignments as a way of attracting and retaining that top talent that we have the hope that in 5 years are going to be our future leaders. The challenge is that they kind of get used to that lifestyle and they love it. And then now they want to move on to the next opportunity. And there isn't that same level of commitment to the organization. So what we're seeing is that these people are skipping around every, 18 to 24 months at max. And it's really challenging when you're investing in a global mobility program costing, millions of dollars to recognize that at the end of this 12-month commitment that you're making in financial investment of anywhere up to $500,000, this person says their goodbyes and moves on to another organization. So,
Mirella, thank you for that. You're having some sound difficulty, and I don't know whether it's here or there, but we heard you well. It's just that it's an echo. Philip.
And just a small piece to tie into this, which all of us need to have a more acute understanding of. We're talking about moving people, global career talent. We have systems in place that support old ways of operating. And that is pay systems, job classifications. I just stay with those two right now. We need to eliminate that, and we need to incorporate a new way of organizing, so that way when we bring in new talent, if they want to move to a different level, then move them. You can incorporate and have a job that has 2 or 3 different levels, pay them accordingly, reward them along the way, move them laterally. Let them understand that up is not the only way they can move across in the organization, and set up something that's support. Sorry, excuse me, that supports that. That's what, I have a lot of pollen here, I'm sorry. So if we can set up systems like that are not the archaic type of Taylor-esque way of operating, then we can incorporate and provide a vehicle that supports new people who have new thoughts, who have that energy because they want to move up, down, and across the organization.
So you mentioned Taylor, that he's the management genius from 100 years ago.
I'm sorry?
Taylor,
Project Taylor, right, yeah.
But
we
I
have
think
a whole different way of operating. And we need to have our pay and compensation systems support that, as opposed to, I mean, you get what you pay for. We're paying people to wait around a whole year with old performance appraisal systems. We don't need performance appraisal systems. What we need are feedback and coaching systems that are able to provide individuals with the skill and capability and provide an area for them. Like, let's move them out of the old departments that they were in, and let's move them into cross-organizational teams, because it is teams that move organizations forward, not just within like the Taylor model. Let's put them into this organization with this hierarchical type of box. So we destroy the very talent that we are trying to reward and enlighten.
Can I add something here?
Philip is right. I think he put the finger on the real issue, is the systems. And if we don't move our systems in tandem with our priorities, you will never get the culture change that you want.
I think
often the systems, and Eva is right, and even Mirella talking about the 10%, the high potentials. In the end, somebody said, it's not my line, that hypos become peepos because they become pissed off and push out and push off. Okay, they become pissed off and push off because that's only the 10% or 15%. You're talking about 85 to 90% of the people you are totally ignoring. And there's inequity there. And it takes a whole organization to succeed. As Philip said, it's a whole team. It's not just the top 10%. So I do think we need to look at our systems, because they don't fit anymore in this world. Really, they don't.
Let's go to Jack.
And if we don't change, we won't fit in this world either.
Jack Jempel has a passion for mentoring others. Jack?
Yeah, and I just want to, from the corporate side, I'm here listening, and there's some major generalizations that are being made here that I don't think are accurate, to be honest with you. Okay, when we are always saying, the sky is falling, the companies are not doing the right thing. Well, I know I work for a great company, okay, that is doing a lot. Okay, what we have to remember is that companies have so many deliverables. They are responsible for so many different people. The employees, our customers, our stockholders, the board of directors. There's so much involved. And yes, you can look at one part of this, and I'm in global mobility, so I would love to have all the systems, okay, to support that. But global mobility is a small part of the 100,000 employees, okay? So to put in place systems, they have to look at the value and where would it be maybe more important. And I know that there are a lot of companies that are now moving to more well-being, and not just for the 10 to 15%. I mean, we do a lot with Gallup. There's a lot of companies out there that are really more advanced in trying to maintain their talent. Our talent of engineers are not your 10 and 15%, okay? They are part of that 80%. So I think, you know, we have to be careful in making generalizations that are not really true for all companies. I think companies have are doing a lot more than what we used to do. There are a lot of systems out there that are a lot more advanced, but of course we cannot put systems in place for every situation. So, but I think we've come a long way, and you know, it's not the way that it used to be.
Thank you, Jack. I want to bring in Barbara Bolt, who's a communications expert.
Thank you, Ed.
So what do you think of all this?
I think it's very interesting, and I'm really glad that Jack piped up here to defend companies. We need the pushback, or we need the balance in the conversation for sure, because you sit in a different seat and see things from a different perspective, which I think is super healthy for this conversation. My business is about coaching people in communication skills that tend to be a little lower down in that organization so that their ideas can come out. You know, we talk about diversity. Global mobility is all about having diverse voices at the table. But if people aren't heard, the diversity never can be capitalized on, if you want to think about it that way. And I do find, I think that top 10% or 15% that Eva was talking about is where the money tends to go. And people may be less willing to spend money to develop these future leaders, these people who can come into their pipeline. I thought what Mirella said was very interesting about younger generations not having the same level of patience. And I do find that with some of my clients that they want to jump levels, or they really want that reward quickly, but they can also be led to understand that to become a true contributor, you need to have some experience and you need to know the business. I mean, that would be primary or principal in order to move up the ladder. So I think there's some education that has to be done with younger employees to help them understand how they can become contributors. I do think it's also super interesting what you said about, somebody said this about, investing in sending someone abroad and then having them jump ship. That was you, Mirella, I think. That would be mortifying. So maybe I don't know, I'm not a corporate person, so I don't even want to go to the place what might work in order to keep those people more on board. But it's a super interesting conversation. I put something in the chat about the fact that a lot of times, and Jack, maybe you can speak to this, people they look at a training budget, but they don't necessarily see that training budget possibly could be utilized for coaching. Coaching can have a longer term effect than just a one-off kind of training. So also as consultants, we can help people think about how they're developing people and what is good practice, we could say, in terms of development.
We're going to continue this. We need to bring in Mark Colo, Larry Linton, my brother Dave, Stephen Howard, Chris Exline. We have so many views here. First, I want to go to a dear friend, James Moss, who's in New York City, just got back from London. Welcome again, James.
Hi, thank you very much, Ed. Great to be back, and particularly in such great company.
Yeah, so you invented this app and this company called AbsoluteRelo.com, which is state-of-the-art using technology. This is, sure, it's a pitch, but this guy invented this thing that is state-of-the-art, and it's unique in the relocation industry. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds here.
Okay, I'll be really quick. I don't want to do a big pitch, but yeah, we basically put the whole of a sort of mobility programs, if you like, DSP, destination service provider type of services, onto a phone. We sort of decided to not even go the computer route. So what we've done is we built a communications app because that's the way people work, simply working off mobile phones. So we have, it's a remote service. We're in 30 countries. We've got 100 Relo advisors out there. And yeah, it's kicking off. One of the really big things about it, I mean, one of our mantras is think global, act local, which sort of has a nice little ring to it. But actually, it's incredibly true. And listening to Jack and Barbara and some of the other commentators here, you have this you know, globalism's been going on for a long time, but it's changed and amorphized in all sorts of incredible ways. It's much more responsible now, I think, certainly in terms of sustainability and so on. But wellness is one of the big factors that keeps coming up. And we've addressed that. And it's quite interesting if you look at traditional relocation. So I'm sort of going away a bit from what we do. You know, up to 40% of traditional relocations, according to the Harvard Business School, were unsuccessful. However, one, you know, describes as unsuccessful. But one of the biggest problems was actually social isolation. And people move, and you move to different cultures and different countries. And if you're working with an organization, it's usually actually not so bad, because you know people in Tokyo or Singapore or, you know, Denver or wherever you're going to. But for families and spouses and partners and stuff like that, it can be really a tough ride. So one of the things that we've looked at, and we have a number of partners who we work with who sort of support us in this area, is in fact the whole wellness community piece. That sort of sits in behind the whole talent moving piece. And as Jack says, you know, moving's just a very small part of the whole sort of talent, sort of management, if you like, and training and development in organizations. So very, very salient subject, this, and ties in beautifully to what we do.
Thank you. We're going to come right back to you. We need to move on. Chris Exline, speaking about Harvard, Chris Exline has some experience. He's coming to us live from Ukraine. Welcome, Chris Exline.
Wonderful to see you. It's evening here, so a glass of red wine, I think, is in order. So I hope you don't mind.
And you have that fireplace behind you.
You know, keeping it real, Ed. I mean, for Global Masterminds, we're sitting here in sub-zero Kremenets, Ukraine, but I've got the fire going. I've got the red wine here, and I've got a little bit of power, so there's no complaints.
Yes. Okay. So what the heck are you doing there? This is an audience that may not know a lot about what you're doing.
Well, I actually, some of you have been my customers. I know Philip Berry has, and I know Jack F. You know, Home Essentials is the largest furniture rental company outside the United States. We started as providing furniture rental for expatriates on assignment, and we've grown into 26 countries. And you know, we are in places like Madrid, Singapore, Hong Kong, Geneva, Milan, but we're also, you know, we have a celebrated career in Afghanistan, Iraq, South Sudan, Djibouti, Libya, and other places. As we approach the 1-year anniversary of this phase of the war, you know, when things started developing in Ukraine, and when the Ukrainians, and I tell you this, there are quite a few Americans or people that are affiliated or understand American history. When I was at the schools yesterday, speaking with the students, what struck me is that what they are going through is the exact same thing that 245 years ago people went through. the people that were now revered as some of the most enlightened, this battle, because they are fighting for freedom, freedom of assembly, freedom of worship, freedom of speech, freedom of being able to choose their own destiny, and the freedom to exist. You know, I'm not taking anything away from the people in 1989, but in Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Czech, Hungary, they did not have to fight for their freedom. Right now, the Ukrainians are paying the price every day for this quest, because they made a decision years ago that they were going to align themselves with democracy. As messy it is, as complicated and the downfalls that democracy and freedom of choice have, they said, we're going to go with this system. We're going to allow the people to choose their destiny. We're going to allow people to decide what they want to do instead of being dictated from others. And now this is the second stage of victory, where they are fighting to defend it. And so to be a part of this in Ukraine is really quite extraordinary. So to answer your question with a direct answer, we are the first foreign investor, the first multinational corporation to invest in Ukraine. We have acquired the capacity of factories within Ukraine to produce office furniture and mattresses. Yesterday, on top of delivering the speeches to the city of Kremenets, we delivered our first furniture rental customer for an apartment. We're the first furniture rental company in Ukraine. We are hiring, we're saving jobs, hiring more staff, and building out our operational and manufacturing capacity within this fantastic country.
So I want you all to use the chat and send a message to Christopher, introducing yourself and how he can get back to you.
Ed, we talk about this every time. I love you. I love the show. This is not about me. This isn't about me coming to Ukraine. This is about the heroism of the Ukrainians. On Friday, I've been asked by the mayor and the city council to speak to the people of this. Well, I'm in a town of 20,000 people, 40% unemployment, 3,000 refugees. But more importantly, yesterday we had the 30th hero pay the price to defend freedom. This isn't about me. And we talked about this before. And those of you in mobility, I mean, you've dealt with Hong Kong. I live in a rooftop on the top of the mid-levels. I mean, I come from a life of enormous privilege, but yet being here, let my actions be the statement. Okay, this isn't about me. This is about supporting Ukraine. This is about people that have an understanding of American history, knowing that we were our revolutionary forefathers, those that wrote the Declaration of Independence, those that signed it, those that wrote the Bill of Rights, like James Madison. They were going against the most powerful force on the planet at that time, but yet they held to their ideals. The exact same is going on right here. I can see it from a historical perspective, and I see it every single day here in Ukraine.
Thank you for doing this on global TV. I really appreciate it.
Ed, though, this country, when they achieve victory number 2, which is this phase of the war, it will unleash an amazing amount of innovation, entrepreneurship, and industrial capacity output that we have not seen.
Stephen Howard and I are friends. He's been on several of our broadcasts. He has written a book called Humany, Humony, just published, and has already won the gold award, the gold medal for its practicality. Stephen.
Oh, thank you, Ed. I don't know how I follow up Christopher. I'm not sure I am your friend anymore. Making me follow him and his remarks, but thank you very much. It's nice to meet everybody here. And yeah, the book is doing well. It focuses on a new mindset of leadership, a people-centric focus of leadership. The basic premise of the book is that managing people is a 1980s construct. And nobody wakes up in the morning today and wants to be managed, and certainly no one wants to be micromanaged by their boss. In fact, one of the things I'm now talking to people about is don't micromanage, micro-coach your people. And but yeah, doing well. Thank you very much for that. And by the way, Philip, I just read your book, and even though it's 10 years old, I think it still has a lot of relevance today. So I thank you for that. I picked up some good points in it, and I would highly encourage you to do an updated version of it. Although in another couple of years, it'll be a classic, Philip, once it's 12 years old. So congratulations.
All right, we have to move on, and everyone will have more chance to speak, I promise. So Mark Colo and I are real good friends. We've known each other for several years here in Southern California from the mobility management point of view, household goods, where he recently retired after a very successful career. And he made a specialty in relocating doctors and world-renowned research scientists, medical research scientists, having to do with the brain. And 14 years ago or so, my friend Mark Colo was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And yet he had a young family and he had a career. And he is managing it. And along with Mark, I want to introduce my friend and Larry Linton, who happens to also be a current Parkinson's patient. And Larry has been a lawyer for many years and is based in Toronto. He's originally from South Africa. Larry Linton has written a book called Shaken, Not Stirred, and it has to do with himself overcoming fear and overcoming Parkinson's inflictions. Mark Colo co-founded with others a charity that's 501(c)(3) and all that. It's called findneurohelp.org. And I've been honored and privileged to help promote awareness in the business community of that charity and continue to do so. Mark has also written 2 books, and one of them is Living with Parkinson's, and the other one is about people who've had it or still have it, called The Great Ones, The Noble and Great Ones. Mark Colo, first to you.
Wow, that's a mouthful. I don't know.
It is. I need a drink.
Don't quite know where to go from there. James, I'm impressed that you invented something in the relocation/moving industry. I was in that field for about 40 plus years, and I'll tell you, I kept waiting for something new to come out. Still doing the moving process the way we've always done it in our industry. It's been interesting. And Andrew, I would like to be the first Parkinsonian to summit Mount Everest. I'm going to need you to prepare me for that. I'm thinking maybe a helicopter or something.
I'm sure we could arrange something. I'm sure I've got enough contacts that could help you.
I'm going to need your help on that for sure. Larry,
Mark, sorry to interrupt, Mark. I actually did the helicopter from Tenbouché down after Mount Everest on October 3rd, 2000. I'll fill you in on I've got all the data on how to do Mount Everest and make it look like you did it, and then get down by helicopter. I went immediately to Phuket.
We have to talk.
Yeah. So I want to introduce Annette Dernick, who's in Cologne, Germany. She's been on our programs a few times when we focused on Germany. So Annette, thank you for coming. I didn't want you to wait any longer before allowing you to speak. I'm afraid you'll disappear. So Annette, your thing is you're in the German Speakers Association many years and a leader, and we're going to get back to everybody here, so don't go away, anybody. So Annette, peace and love in companies, is that possible?
Yes, and I would say it's not only possible, it's really necessary. And I really love the talk that we have here, because in my opinion, it's not so much about, let's say, top leaders or other people working in the company. In my opinion, it's the work in the company, I would compare it to a clockwork. So if you only concentrate, for example, on the top leaders and forget the other ones, I call them, who are doing the work, then we miss out a very important part. And the other thing is when people are looking for employees and the employees arrive at the company and the person who kind of welcomes them, that already has a very big impact on how people feel in this company. And this applies not only for the company wherever it is, but also for people going to other countries to live in other, to work in other cultures and to live in other cultures. So I have also been training a lot of people before they went abroad, and not only the managers, but also the families. And I think in general, if we will have more appreciation and live together in a more peaceful way, then we all will benefit, and not only we, but also the planet. And so I really hope that more people kind of, change to this mindset. And this is, in my opinion, how we can get along. And then we don't have to distinguish any longer between generation X, Y, Z, generation Alpha, and so on. But if we appreciate and every person and every human being as he or she is, then I think it will be good for all of us.
This program is going to continue for 35, 40 minutes, but some people have obligations. I want to introduce my brother, Dave. Welcome. This is your first time on the show.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Dave lives in Northern California now. A lifetime in the public relations and news business, and actually has been a distant motivation and mentor by just watching him go through his career for me to launch Global TV Talk Show 3 years ago when the live conference business crashed as a result of the pandemic. And so I've learned how to be Chet Huntley looking at this green light, because my brother did that kind of thing for ABC News and Fleischman Hilliard. Dave?
So you're dating yourself with Chet Huntley. I mean, you realize that probably
we all miss David Brinkley. We all miss the David Brinkley, Chet Huntley things. I can remember sitting there in 1967 in front of the TV set, waiting for Chet Huntley and David Brinkley. So please go ahead, David.
In the early '80s, I actually worked with David Brinkley. So,
Frank Reynolds too.
Frank Reynolds and Peter Jennings. Those were my heroes. And they kept me employed. What I do now is I write for people. I put words in people's mouths. I work for corporate executives, board members, basically on an on-call basis. And it's everything from an email to an earnings call script, liberally salted with messages like work harder for less pay and soon you'll be rewarded. So the key on what I've learned about dealing with all of those things is not just to listen to people up and down the chain, but to hear what they say. Most of my work tends to be aimed at the lowest level of a company, the people that make the engines move every day, and the people and translating the words of those who are in the penthouse to those on the first floor. And it works when the people in the penthouse are open, honest, and they tell the truth. And when they don't, they get into trouble. I learned this lesson, maybe 35, 40 years ago, when I was on one of these HR things at the time, which was, survivalist training, something I'll never be. But, and I was mixed with a group of people who had all kinds of skills, everybody from a hunter to a fireman to a senior business executive to some idiot like me. And the key was to understand that everyone at the table brings something to the table. And, and when you are writing or communicating outward or downward, you've got to take into account how people are going to respond to it, what they're going to hear, what you want them to hear, what they need to hear, and they're going to look at it in a similar point of view. Not always successful, but it tends to work very well. You get good messages. I've pulled a lot of companies through a number of crises situations, some of which were really big and very much in the headlines, and others which were big only in the minds of the executives. And so the key is to analyze something, look at it from a 360-degree angle. And if I can add one other thing, I've been a leading spouse and I've been a trailing spouse, and both of which are manageable, both of which are solvable, both of which are doable, if you are willing to listen, to be flexible. And, you know, when you when you guys who are in relo send somebody, you know, halfway around the world and then expect them to work miracles on day one. I mean, I remember a number of times I got transferred and I was told I was going to get transferred. And then finally one Friday night, my boss comes to me and says, be in Chicago the next Monday. And, you know, without any real prep, without any real thought. And, you know, it's understand these are people you're dealing with. Understand these people have families, they have their own lives. And, you know, it's not just a piece on the pegboard of international relations. I'll stop preaching now, Ed.
So I want you to make sure you communicate in the chat to Mark Colo and Larry Linton. You have something in common. Larry, tell us about Shaken Not Stirred.
Thanks, Ed. Good to see everybody. Some familiar faces and some new faces. Shaken Not Stirred is my little memoir about my, at the time, 10-year journey with Parkinson's. I was 9 to 5. I've been a corporate immigration lawyer. But 24/7, I've been living with Parkinson's for over 10 years now. And I've picked up a lot of words, you know, fear, well-being, rewired, because these are themes that I talk about in my book and what I live through, which I think has made me a more empathetic and authentic leader to the staff that I currently mentor and coach in still my practice of corporate immigration law. There's nothing quite like fear, being diagnosed with a chronic, progressive and incurable illness at the age of 49, you know, mid-career with a family to support. But having said that, I still have found the true purpose in my life, having been diagnosed with Parkinson's. I've achieved a lot more in my world with Parkinson's than I have in my world without it. So I found that lived experience, I think, does make me a more authentic leader and manager. I think it's made me rethink and rewire the way I live my life, as well as coach others. So that's my story. So thanks for having me on, and good to see you, Mark.
I just want to add that I was diagnosed with Parkinson's about a year ago. Right. And I'm learning to navigate. I've concentrated. I can now type with one hand very well.
Right.
Because the other hand keeps wanting to do things that I don't want it to do.
Right.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a group, if you thought here, if you're really interested in Parkinson's and what it does and how it makes its inroads, it's a miracle to me that you have 3 people on a phone call that have Parkinson's. That is such a rare oddity, you know, and I've got these adaptive principles that I'm trying to apply every day of my life now. And one of them is there are no coincidences in life, just miracles. And this is a miracle, having 3 people on the phone on a call at this moment in time as with some of you here on this call, for other people. Chris is going to be my new Sherpa buddy. I mean, you make these great connections in these situations, just wonderful.
Yeah.
So my what's that? What was that?
Anytime. I'll meet you at the Yak and Yeti. I'll meet you at the Yak and Yeti Hotel in Kathmandu. I've got about 40 I have 40 Nepalese employees. I don't say this. I don't rent clothes. I rent furniture, but I'm not going to rent other people's clothing. We'll get you kitted out, and I've got my own people. We'll make a plan, and we'll do this. We'll figure out at the Everest View Hotel.
Yep.
Mark,
okay.
You and I at the Everest View Hotel will have a phone-in conference with Ed, and we'll do that as a meeting.
Not the Yak and Yeti.
For those,
you are a go-getter.
Mark knows this. The Yak and Yeti is in Kathmandu. Very few people know what the Everest View Hotel is, and only those of us that have been there. Yes, we'll have a masterminds conference from the Everest View Hotel.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got one more plug I want to put in here. This is my new mantra. And my mantra now these days is adaptability proliferates possibilities. We need to be flexible. We need to try new things. We need to get out there and get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, well, I don't hide behind it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So anyway, I just thought about that a lot lately.
I just like to mention my father had Parkinson's for 25 to 30 years,
right.
And he did really well with it. I mean, very stable. I think part of the issue for him in the earlier days is he didn't know he had it.
Right.
And it's really hard to diagnose. And
yes.
Once you understand you've got it, because it's a bit like, I don't know, it's a bit like, I was going to say Alzheimer's, but there are a whole load of these things that look quite similar is the point. And he had a terrific, really good life during his Parkinson's phase. And part of it was just realizing he had it and the relief that he felt when I know what I've got, I can deal with it. And then you get into the whole Parkinson's community. And it's not the terrible, horrible thing it used to be. I mean, it still is, of course, the mental deterioration, but it's incredibly manageable.
It is.
It is manageable. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's all about adaptation. You just have to adapt to it.
Larry Linton, you ran marathons and you joined a jazz band playing the drums. That you got control of that.
Yeah, to deal with the physical symptoms of Parkinson's, I started running and eventually ran 3 half marathons in 5 years. And to deal with the tremors in my hand, I took to drumming. I was an average drummer, but then I became a fairly good hand drummer and played as a percussionist in the Beaches International Jazz Festival 3 years in a row as well. And I've taken to exercise, obviously, that is the number one issue to deal with symptoms. And, swimming, running, and bike riding. I consider myself a triathlete, but I just take 3 days to do the 3 disciplines. I don't necessarily do them all in one day. But really, I like the person that I've turned into with Parkinson's, believe it or not, because it gave me time to calibrate, rewire, and become a better person. There were times that I was kept up at night with some of those real dark questions about what my life was going to be. But once you get through the acceptance stage and start living again, you realize that you can live, and it's not a death sentence. I think there's a misconception, that Parkinson's was an old person's disease, but that's no longer the case, as you can see from, the 3 of us. And but I'm here to tell you, as I'm sure Mark is as well, a veteran at this, that there is a life to live with Parkinson's, and you can still be a functioning member of society and contribute, and get out there. I try and tell people not to wait for a diagnosis that I had 10 years ago. Is don't wait for that diagnosis. Live your life like you've just had the diagnosis. because that may give you, a different perspective.
I want to bring in my good friend from Rotterdam, Tineke. One of her pursuits is helping women and men, as you alluded to early in the show, understand the difference between feminine and masculine, and from a business point of view. Tineke? Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels like I'm camping here. I'm sitting outside my hotel on a sofa in Marrakesh because the Wi-Fi in my room was not good enough. I'm on my cell phone, so I'm not engaging a lot in the chat. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I would like to contribute to the people who work in corporate organizations, the consultants and everything, and especially helping women becoming talents, because I think there's someone not many people are aware of, at least when I wasn't, and I'm learning. When I was born, I was supposed to be a guy. My dad only wanted a boy. There was only a boy's name. Well, I was a girl, so he had no say in it. I'm not Marcus, I'm Tineke. But the way I was raised was very masculine. Dad was the power man of the family. It was his say. My mom didn't have much to say, so that was my example. I started doing male sports, whitewater kayaking, mogul skiing. I started an outdoor and survival business where I was the only woman in the niche, and I was accompanied by male entrepreneurs. So looking back at it, I was an extremely masculine woman. So there's a difference between masculine and feminine. Men can be masculine. Naturally, they are more masculine, but women can be masculine too. Now, my idea is that the women who do become successful in their careers have learned a lot of masculine. I was highly successful with my former business. I sold it, and then I encountered a lot more women, and those women were sometimes very feminine. And from my masculine point of view, I looked at it as in the way business was done, like, oh man, that's weak. They're making themselves small. They're diminishing themselves. But I start to look at it different. And I wrote down, masculine is, I wrote down a few things. Masculine, feminine, it's about habits. It's about traits. It's about energies. It's skills, but also words. And I wrote down a couple that I've heard today. I heard talking about system. That's the masculine. The feminine would be adaptable. Profit is the masculine. The feminine would be serving. Control is masculine. The feminine would be trust. And there's focus. That's masculine. The feminine is multi-awareness. And I can go on. I have a whole list of words which I heard today saying out loud. And I looked at what's the masculine, what's the feminine. Now, the feminine has been suppressed centuries by religion, because the feminine is all about intuition. It's about spirituality. It's about collaboration, socializing. Those were the things that naturally the masculine man was not good at. And we had a patriarchal society. We had a masculine society. So the feminine has been suppressed. Actually, many women have been burned because they were feminine and they were using their intuition. And I think Philip was talking about this. We're now entering an era where the patriarchal society, especially in the Western societies, is turning into more matriarchal, but still very, very slowly. Doing business is still extremely masculine. And the women who become masculine, they will succeed. because feminine at the moment is not even a measurement for success in the dictionary. So helping the feminine to succeed in business is all about what Annette also says, love, the heart, that's very, very feminine. So it's interesting, and many people have left who talked about this. It's hardly anybody realizes that when we help women to step up the corporate ladder, we make them masculine, because the whole system is very masculine still. And I heard Philip talking about we need to coach more. So it's growing more. It's growing more into the feminine. But I think it's important for executives to know about this, for people who train women to know about this, because basically what we're doing at the moment is training women to become masculine, and then they can succeed. And I don't think that is the way to do. I'm a president of She Credits. That's a voluntary organization, and we help business women in the Netherlands finding funding, because that's a huge, huge gap. Women can't find money to scale and to scale and build their business. And then we're stuck in a financial system which is extremely masculine. It's all about numbers. It's about stats. It's about men dictating who gets the money and doesn't get the money, because usually they are the investors. And we're 3 women in the board, and we now decided we need to do this differently, because we had a few women who applied for money at She Credit, and they eventually ran away because it was too masculine. We asked too much of them. So we're now seeing, how can we do more from trust? How can we more trust instead of the proof? How can we more assess by, well, what do they have in them, instead of what is their track record, which is masculine? So we are now in the beginning of changing the financial industry in my country. But I personally want to change the whole doing business and corporate arena to becoming more feminine. So this is my pledge. And yeah, thank you for giving me that stage, Ed. And you can hear I'm evolving in this topic. The first time we talked, it was
work in
November.
progress. Right.
Yeah, it's really growing on me, and I'm getting more and more passionate about it.
So as we all know, or if we don't, we should know that March is International Women's Month. And last year, a friend of mine, Dr. Lynn Schmidt, who's a PhD in people things. Anyway, she wrote a book called Anti-Sexist or something like that. And she says, Ed, you are a sexist, but don't worry, everybody is. And then she explains what all that meant. And so we attracted women, mostly women, but not all, from Asia, Latin America, Canada, US, Dubai, India, to our programs last March. And so we're going to do it again now. And Tineke, I want you to come on a program. I'll send you an invite. Dr. Lynn Schmidt is going to co-host a series with me throughout March. And we have specific dates and area focus programs all about women business leaders, or women in business leader roles. If they don't own it, they manage it. And so Eva, I welcome you. Barbara, I welcome you. I want everybody to meet my new friend, Annalisa Landa, who's from Hull in England. Say hi.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Hi.
I'm glad you could jump in. And
yes, just on the end. Never mind. I'm here.
yeah, that's great. Okay, so Annalisa, you have a podcast, and I'm going to be one of your guests one of these days soon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to chatting with you on Friday about that, Ed. It'll be really great to have a one-to-one with you and to brief you on that. So yes, we just launched. It's called A Show of Values. So it's a show.
What's a value? A value is
value
a
something
relationship.
Value is something you really care about, something that makes you angry, makes you cry, makes you sing. A value is a deeply held idea, principle, or belief that drives your behavior and shapes your reality. So apart from those things that lie outside of our control, values help us to navigate difficult decisions. They help us to create healthy boundaries. They help us to negotiate conflict, and they give us clarity as well. So have personal values or values in the organization as well.
So I want you to meet Eva and Annette and Barbara.
Good to meet all of you.
And Tineke, and use the chat to exchange messages. It'd be great. So this is your third show with me, right?
Yes, I think it is, Ed. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have another one coming up on Feb 27.
Yes, that's the one I had in my diary.
Yeah, and then I'll get you invites to the March thing too. So I want you to say hello to Annette Dernick, who's from Germany. And
hi, Annette.
Barbara Bolt is from Detroit. Eva is from Sweden. And Tineke is from Rotterdam.
Brilliant.
And then Larry is in Toronto. Mark is in, it looks like the corner in Atlanta, but I think you're really in St. George, Utah.
That's far more accurate. Far more accurate.
And
he looks like he's on the 17th green of Augusta.
Yeah, that's it.
I got to tell you, Ed, I got to tell you, about 2 weeks ago, I got my first birdie in 16 years. A birdie.
So what is that, under par?
That's one shot under par.
Wow.
That's just one hole, but that's pretty good for a Parkinson's guy.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I was just going to say.
So did you use a special club for that?
No, there's some luck definitely involved here. A quick joke. I got a quick joke because Larry gave me a joke last time we talked, and it was something about he's thankfully never has to purchase an electric toothbrush because of his shave. And I got one back at you, Larry. Here, you can use this one too, okay?
Okay, give it
Parkinsonians make the best martinis shaken, not stirred.
And that's the title of your book.
So get that put in your book real quick.
So, Mark, do you do the jitterbug when you dance?
Haven't worked on that for a while.
I'm trying to be funny.
I'll give it a shot. Though.
Well, you know what? It's a good point. You have to be funny with Parkinson's. I mean, it's such a serious topic that we've got to be kind to ourselves. And I know Mark follows the example of, having a sense of humor. I mean, the issue, I think my sense of humor has sustained me through this 10-year journey so far. And I think we've got to lighten up and not take our lives too seriously when we can.
Laughter is the best medicine, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Annalisa, have you met Chris before? I don't remember whether you were on
Yes, I have met
okay,
Chris. Good. Yeah, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and Mark was in the last show that I was on.
Yeah, and James.
No, I don't think I met James before.
No, I think this is the first actually, but it's always nice to meet a fellow Brit, particularly one from up north, the fishing fleet and all that good stuff. So I'm a fan. I miss the beer.
So sorry, I missed where are you from, James? Then
I'm from London, but I'm
right, you're in London.
York. Yeah. So
right, okay.
The soft south.
Yeah, we're hard up north.
yeah, I know you're all a bit rough, but it's okay.
So Eva, let's get back to you and what you're doing. Why don't you describe what you're doing?
Well, what I'm doing is that I'm helping companies to shine via their employees in reality. So what I do is that I work a lot with top management, how to help my customers to utilize all employees instead of only a small part of them, because it will just be slightly too expensive for them due to several reasons. But I also help directly the CEO because sometimes it's good to have, even if they might have the best HR in the world, it's sometimes good to have an external partner to just have a chat with every now and then.
Well, Barbara Bolt is a member of our Global Press Club, has been very active on our show. Your specialty is helping people who don't speak English as a first language, isn't that right?
That's one of my target markets, yes. People in companies who need to acquire leadership communication. They speak English at a certain level, but they've realized that maybe they need help with culture, how to structure their messages so that they land with their audiences. I've recently also realized that I'm very good with introverts, even if their first language is English. Interestingly, the challenges of those two groups are similar, but for different reasons.
I know, but we don't have any on the show.
No introverts? Probably not. I would bet that we don't have too many on this show. But yeah, Jack left already, but I'm thinking in Stryker, there are quite a few. So it's those tech managers, engineers, IT, people who choose their profession because the introversion, they like just working by themselves and they like the detail and that techie detail, but then they find themselves in situations where they need to contribute ideas and to contribute to innovation, or in order to create innovation in an environment, their contribution is necessary, and they find it difficult to speak up. They might ramble in certain situations when they haven't had the chance to pull their thoughts together. So I help them develop a communication style that works in those rooms where they need to show up. And the same is true for the non-native English speakers. Sometimes they don't contribute because they just either don't have the accurate vocabulary or they're not structuring their messages appropriately so they can be heard. So those are my target markets. And it's very rewarding to work with people and see them start at one place and then transform to be a better communicator.
So Annette, what do you think of that?
Oh, I completely agree with especially what you said, Barbara, because when I'm working with groups and teams, when I realize that those who are kind of shy or introvert, that they don't contribute, then I ask them, what do you think about this proposal? And I'm always astonished about the kind of overview that they have, to put it in a maybe a little bit too black and white scheme. I would say extroverts are talking and introverts are listening. And so it's always good as an extrovert to have some introvert who is listening, and when he or she is being asked to show the opinion. And I think we've all been talking about that each of us has his and her own qualities. And in my opinion, it's so good to really appreciate everybody for his and her qualities and to support everybody to be able to contribute in the whole work together, because thus we can thrive. Because it's not only about talking or listening, it's about kind of bringing these things together in order to be kind of a whole team. And in my opinion, these teams, if they are really good, that they are as successful as successful sports teams. So I completely agree that it's really important to take care of everybody who's in the team, and not only in the team, but in the company as well.
So Chris,
can I just add just a small thing? Barbara, I wish that you were in my life when I started working directly after university. I still remember I was working as an HR assistant, and I was going to support some kind of HR director in the UK. I still don't remember. I wish so much that I would have saved this email, but I wrote something about I needed to have a computer or something for a newly hired employee. And I said, I thought I was very polite. I wasn't, apparently, because all I got back was that, not that tone to me.
Woo.
So after that, I went straight to my manager and said, I need an English lesson or a training course or something. But I so much wish that I would have saved that email, because it did not have any intention being rude, but apparently that was what he thought.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And it happens all the time in just small ways. And yeah, some people do think they need English lessons. I like to say that I approach it from a linguistic, cultural, and leadership perspective, so that I kind of can look at all three aspects and help people move forward with their communication. But I wish I'd known you then too.
Okay, Tineke, what do you think about all this from a feminine, masculine thing?
Well, there's various ways of communicating, you know, and I think often when women communicate, they are a bit insecure. What we say is man can position themselves better, man can speak better. It's just because, and we call that bragging. Yeah, they're always so full of themselves. That's apparently more masculine. Apparently more feminine is that we're modest. I think, you know, I think it's good when women also become a bit more masculine in positioning themselves and in communicating and speaking up for themselves, definitely. So that's from the angle I can bring in.
Wow. Hey, James, can you put that stuff into your app? You know, the things that we're talking about here about language and how to behave when you're in a different environment, a different culture?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, what can you do with tech really is sort of the question there. I mean, you know, we use partners because although we're sort of tech based, we are human. I mean, that's the whole concept of what we do. That's why we call ourselves a relocation business, not a technology business. So yeah, we tend to sort of outsource culture and stuff like language. We have terrific language consultants who we work with all over the place. Japanese is the big thing at the moment we're working on. But you can do stuff with, you know, like Chat GPT and stuff like that's getting really interesting. And there are some interesting little comments on the chat side of your this presentation here and so on. And you know, things like chat, they're just, you know, really, really clever, but they don't replace humans. They don't, you know, it doesn't have empathy. I don't know if you've ever tried to negotiate, you know, a property rental for a client or something like that. And, you know, I'm sorry, robots really don't do it. You know, you get a robot talking to a sort of, you know, a property negotiator or agent in Hull, you're going to get pretty short shift, I think. So you've got to get, you know, it's got to be balanced. Yeah, technology is fantastic in the sense it makes everything faster, easier, smarter, quicker. And particularly in the world of sort of soundbite communications. I mean, I'm a little old fashioned. I still write long emails, and I've sort of stopped doing it because, I mean, you know, they probably weren't that interesting to start off with, and you know, and so who needs them now, type of thing. You know, it's the whole sort of game's changed, and the fact that people pick up a phone, they don't text it, they do a video call. I mean, that's what happens. So yeah,
on WhatsApp, I know.
Yeah, on WhatsApp. I mean, our platform is built on WhatsApp. We integrated it into what we do. It's encrypted, it's secure, and everyone uses it, and it's free. So why not? What's not to like, type of thing.
Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, you got to keep it human.
So Mirella, I welcome you back. If you got time to join us, please jump in, and if you'd care to comment on any of this.
I only have a couple of minutes because I'm committed to another call at 12:30. And yes. I have been heavily distracted this morning, but something's happening in the background. So I apologize for that.
No, it's quite all right. I'm really happy to have you on our programs the past year or so. And I welcome you back, of course. During March, we're going to be doing several broadcasts across the month I think we have 5, maybe 6, focusing on women in business leadership roles. And Morella and Annalisa and Annette, and Tineke, Ava, I welcome you. Barbara, I welcome you. And I welcome everybody to join us. It's not exclusive to females, although it's geared for that. So as I mentioned earlier, my partner in this and co-host is Dr. Lynn Schmidt, and she'll be the show driver and I'll be the moderator. When we did our APAC event last March, we had people from Australia and New Zealand and Korea and Taipei and Japan and somewhere else. I think Hong Kong, no, Shanghai. And they're all going to come back into this program. So really looking forward to March, focusing in on women in business leader roles. Don't have to be an owner, you just have to be a leader of some kind and be willing to talk about your experience to our global audience, and it will be recorded, so be careful. James, I welcome you to jump in, of course, and Larry, welcome you to come back. And of course, my friend Chris Exline in wherever he will be, hopefully safe in Ukraine. So my friend, your fire is very appealing. And I thank you for taking time from your busy schedule for joining this discussion. What have you learned from this discussion, Chris?
I've learned that, as a CEO of a global corporation, we get fed information every day from people that tell us what we want to know or what they perceive we want to know. And what I've learned today, and what I truly enjoy about Masterminds, is that we have, as CEOs or leaders, CFOs, COOs, or whomever, we really have to delve deeper into the organizations to find out what's going on. And one of the things that I've enjoyed most about being here in Ukraine is, like, yesterday we did a delivery for our first furniture rental customer. Ed, you know me, the last time I'd been on a delivery truck, delivering furniture to a customer home, and thank God Philip and Jim aren't here anymore, because they've been great. Colgate and Stryker have been great customers of ours. You learn more being on site. And I would preach about this. I mean, you don't know who the CEO of American Airlines is, but if the flight attendants or the gate agents give you a hard time, you hate the airline. Same thing with our delivery people. If they aren't well-versed, if they don't have customer service, if they're not respected, if they're not empowered, if they just tell the customer at the installation, "Oh, sorry, missing a part," or "Sorry, nothing we can do," and they hate the company. And so for me, these types of conversations are exhilarating because we can preach. I can do the HBS case study mantras. I can talk about the 5 competitive forces that shape strategy. I can say all these beautiful words, but when it gets down to it, when you're client facing, that's what you have to do. And what they've told us here, and what's been so refreshing, is that, we have to just drop all the pretense. And in this world of instant notification, how do we empower every member of our staff at every level to feel like an owner so that they can propel the organization if we as leaders articulate a vision of where we're going? Now, see, that's the difference. What's been absent in this, sorry for everyone, I love you all. We talk about empowerment, we talk about what we're going to do, and not kumbaya, but if the CEO or the CFO or COO is not articulating a vision of where we're going, then what are you empowering people for? Frankly, it's all just a bunch of bullshit. Sorry, but but if I fail in my responsibility of telling this organization of mine of over 1,000 employees where we're going, why we exist, why we need to exist, and would the world care if we didn't, then why do they show up other than a paycheck? So it's basically what we've got to do in corporate relocation and corporate development is how do we get the C-suite and the delivery people all connected into something where we have a common purpose, and so I've got to make a decision to articulate, this is where we are as a company. These are the mistakes we've made. This is what we've learned. This is where we're going. Do you sign on? That's it.
Annalisa?
Hi, thank you. So I just wanted to pick up on what Chris said there, because he talked about vision, but then he talked about purpose. He talked about the why, okay? And I really do believe that the why then goes back to the values of the organization, the reason that it exists, what it's trying to actually achieve. You can't communicate that unless you know what you really stand for. When I go back to my why I left employment to set up my business, it was that one value that I can identify out of all my core values. It was justice. It was that need to see justice done, that need to see fairness in the workplace, and also respect for people as well. And that drives me. And so in those really difficult times, obviously, setting up on your own, it's difficult. You take a big pay cut, and you keep going on the hope you're going to persevere and you're going to keep going. And on those days that, sometimes it's tempting to think, oh, it was so much easier if I was back in work again. I just think of that word, justice. I'm fighting for something here. It's more than just a job. It's more than just a company. It's a mission. I stand for a mission and a movement of people who are trying to change the world by making businesses align, identify with their values, define very clearly their values, and align with their values so that they can communicate, so they know their vision, they can communicate that vision and be authentic with it as well. Actually be authentic so that people can see that they mean what they say, and they're not just words on a page, and it's not just a PR exercise. Going back to that other word that Chris used, beginning with B.
It's interesting because as we've been interviewing people here, these are people in Ukraine. This is a country at war, a city of 40% unemployment. So I had some CEO arrogance coming into this. But you sit there and you talk to people, and they're talking, why do you want to work here? Oh, well, because you're going to pay well. Okay. You'll pay on time. Okay. Oh, because you'll respect our work-life balance. I'm sitting there going, excuse me, I'm an American. We talk about work-life balance, but do you really know many American CEOs that practice work-life balance? I mean, we Americans, we work a lot. I mean, we really do, especially executives. I mean, I don't expect everyone to work 7 days a week, but damn it, I sure as hell do. And, and I also tell these people, this isn't a job about work-life balance. This is a job about rebuilding your nation. This is a job about taking advantage of an opportunity where we have first mover advantage. And what do we do with that? So, yeah, I mean, I'm in this conundrum right now where I have to be supportive. I mean, I have to adopt the HR perspective of what we're doing, but then do I deny my true self, which is, we're going to be working 18-hour days, 6 days a week, rebuilding your nation. And we don't want to lose an opportunity. We want to build up barriers of entry to potential competitors. This is we're in this to win. We're in this to so I mean, that's where I need your help, actually. I mean, Teneke and Alexandra and James and Larry. I mean, where is that balance of me trying to put a facade over, oh yes, I understand that weekends are sacred, and I mean it's 5:30 and time to go home, and like, my God, your country's destroyed. We're going to rebuild this nation, and we're going to do it now, and we don't want to allow competitors to come in, and let's stop complaining about having too many phone calls. Mute.
I'm speechless.
Chris, if you said you want some advice, be who you are. If you love your work, you're not working. So if you love what you do, if you love being there for your people, then do that. And that's what you're good at. That's what I hear. There's so much heart when you speak. So if that's what you offer to the business, man, and the country, I think that's more than enough.
Yeah, I mean, from my limited experience in safe Toronto, I'm certainly nowhere near Ukraine, but I think it's a great combination between vision, values, and authentic leadership. I think if those two can meet, then the sky's the limit, to coin another phrase. It's that combination of the two.
Yeah, and I would throw in passion and opportunity. I don't know a single entrepreneur who's been successful 9 to 5. I also was old enough to remember 1989 and the fall of the war in Berlin. And I was, just so happened, I was married to a Romanian defector at the time. Nice story here. I'll write a book about it one day. But you know, the opportunities that opened up, the passion of the people, Chris, just like you're seeing in the Ukraine, is a phenomenal driver. It goes above and beyond commercialism. It goes above and beyond sort of what we see in our regular work lives. It's a different space, and it's incredibly exciting, and it's incredibly dynamic. It's incredibly risky, and you just got to go for it. And I take my hat off to you. I think you're doing just the right thing in the right place at the right time, and I wish you every success.
Yeah.
Thanks, James. But as I travel the perspective on this with everyone, in 1989, the Romanians, the Bulgarians, the Hungarians, the Slovakians, the Czechs, the Lithuanians, Estonians, Polish, they didn't die for their freedom. What we're witnessing today is the result of a decision that the Ukrainians made years ago to choose freedom, to align their values with the democratic West and the industrialized nations. And they're paying the price for that now. And that's what makes this different. This isn't about me being opportunistic or taking advantage of a situation. This is about me recognizing that the Ukrainians today are doing something that hasn't been done in hundreds of years. They are dying for their right to exist. Yes, Israel fights every day for its right to exist. But yet here in Ukraine, the battle is somewhat the same, just a little bit more lethal, in that every day they're under attack from an invading empire of the evil of one man unchecked. And we as Americans, we look at what the foundation, the tenets of our entire system. It's based on those Bill of Rights. If we don't support Ukraine at this time, then I have to question, what do we support? I don't know if you know, for those, I think Ed and I may be the only Americans on the phone, but I don't know who you voted for, and basically I don't care. But what Joe Biden did, coming to Kyiv, walking the streets with the air raid signs going on, to those in Ukraine, there's not a more powerful symbol than the President of the United States of America coming into this country saying, I stand with you. Going into that place of worship, saying, I'm with your people. Going to the place of the fallen, I'm with them. On Friday, as I told Ed earlier, I've been invited to give a few words for the 30 heroes in our little city that have paid the ultimate price so that the children can pursue a life that they elect to choose.
My friend Chris, you just sent me something about an hour, 2 hours ago, which was a report of you speaking to the kids. Tell us about that experience, please.
So yesterday, the event occurred yesterday, I was invited to speak to the children of Kremenets. Now, what we've basically been doing is we have a program called Rest Assured. where we're delivering mattresses, thousands of them, to refugees. But also, I believe another part of our corporate responsibility or corporate duty as a lead investor, as a major employer in this town now, is to communicate with the children or the people in the community and let them know what we think. And so the school district asked me if I would speak to the children again. I went in there and I was and for those of you that don't know, I have a wonderful husband. He's an actor and a pop singer in Hong Kong. We'll never have children, but that doesn't stop us from loving what the children represent, which is just a quest for life unbridled and unshackled by the conditions of the evil that permeates their existence every day. So I was asked to deliver the award ceremony to their celebration of statehood and history and culture. And so I'm there and I'm just delivering a talk about, not false hope, not, oh, you know what, and I'm a Christian, but oh, you know what, God's got a plan, everything's going to work out fine. That doesn't solve the issue. They go back to their parents every night. What does this mean, Mom and Dad? What is war? Why do we have war? Why are these people killing my uncle and our cousins? And so you look at it through the perspective of the lens of the context of an overall situation and what these people are dying for. And it's dying for their rights, their liberties. It's the exact same thing that those soldiers in Massachusetts, in New York, and Pennsylvania, died for, so that the United States of America could become a country. And, maybe the talk was a little bit heavier than 8 and 9 year olds of any country were expecting, but, I connected with them. In fact, I didn't send you the photo, Ed. Today I was at another cafe as our offices are still being built out, and a group of 10 kids came into the cafe to say hello. And so, where you talk about corporate responsibility and you talk about, having high touch with your employees. But again, I get back to, as a CEO, as a leader, you have to have a vision. You have to be able to communicate clearly to everyone with whom you come in contact, shareholders, stakeholders, and staff, why we even exist. And what does it mean? And does anyone really effing care? Sorry for the word, but does anyone care that you exist? And does the world care if we don't exist tomorrow? And if we can't, as leaders, do that, then why are we in the positions that we have? So, like I've said before, I'm very blessed that my husband is fully supportive of what I'm doing. I have the means and the ability. We don't have any shareholders. So I can spend as much time here as long as it takes to build out this business, to propel and perform this vision that we've articulated for the future of our company.
Well, as you could see, I'm recording all of this, and I have to tell you, this is one for the ages. So thank you all for being on Global TV Talk Show, and please come back another time. This is Ed signing off. And thank you, Tineke. Thank you, Larry. Please come back. Annalisa, great.
Thank you for the invite.
James.
Thank you, Ed.
I'm glad you could witness this.
Crystal, the best.
Yeah. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for facilitating it.
Thank you.